There's a specific kind of person who slowly disappears, not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, methodically, like water draining from a bathtub. One day they're texting in the group chat, the next they're leaving messages unread. Weeks later, nobody knows what they're doing anymore, and everyone around them has a theory about why. They're depressed, they're angry, they're thinking they're too good for everyone else. But here's what actually happens in their mind. They've done the math, and the equation doesn't add up. The calculation nobody talks about. These people aren't antisocial, they're accounting. They track how many times they reach out versus how many times people reach out to them. They notice who texts first. They keep score of who remembered their birthday without a reminder. And after months or years of data collection, their brain reaches a conclusion. I'm not a priority. I'm the one who initiates. I'm the one who maintains. I'm the safety net, not the center. And that realization changes everything. The withdrawal doesn't come from hate. It comes from something quieter, more mathematical, a slow acceptance that the effort to return ratio isn't worth the emotional tax. So they stop initiating, not as punishment, as peace. The two types of ghosts. Some people withdraw because they were burned. They poured everything into relationships and got crumbs in return. Birthday parties where nobody showed up. Late night calls where nobody answered. Years of being the listener while nobody asked how they were doing. One day their nervous system said enough and they stopped trying. Others never had the bandwidth to begin with. They look at people who seem to effortlessly maintain 10 friendships and feel genuinely confused. How? How do you remember to text back? How do you care about group chats? How do you maintain that level of social energy when existing already costs everything? For them, withdrawal isn't punishment, it's triage. They're choosing their peace over other people's comfort. Both paths look the same from the outside, silent, distant, cold. But inside, it's not coldness, it's honesty about capacity. What they're actually doing. Here's what people don't understand. The person who disappeared isn't sitting at home bitter. They're reorganizing their life around a radical truth. They feel better alone. Not lonely, better. There's a difference. Alone is what they choose. Lonely is what everyone assumes they feel. When they don't respond to your text, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about their breathing getting easier. They're noticing they don't have to perform. They're realizing conversations don't have to happen just because you're supposed to have them. For the first time in years, nobody needs anything from them. And that's not sad, that's sanctuary. The guilt they carry. But here's where it gets complicated. Even people who are genuinely happier alone still feel the weight. They see photos of friends hanging out and feel the small pang of being left out, not because they wanted to be there, but because they weren't invited. They notice people stop reaching out and feel the confirmation, yes, it was always me doing the work. And knowing you were right about that, knowing you predicted the silence, doesn't feel like victory, it feels like loss. Psychologists call this avoidant attachment. You convince yourself you don't need people because needing them has historically hurt. So you create the outcome you fear. You withdraw first. You reject before being rejected. You build walls and then feel lonely inside them. Not because you want connection, but because you're honoring the part of you that learned connection wasn't safe. Permission to be alone. The truth is this: You don't owe anyone your presence. You don't owe anyone consistent communication. You don't owe anyone proof that you care. If people only matter to you when they reach out, that's not coldness, that's boundaries. If you prefer solitude to forced interaction, that's not depression, that's preference. Maybe you're withdrawing from toxic people. Maybe you're honoring an introversion that society shames. Maybe you're protecting yourself from disappointment. Maybe you've just learned that your peace is more valuable than other people's comfort. And that's not just okay, that's wisdom. You're not broken for ghosting, you're just finally honest about what you need. And sometimes the most healing thing you can do is disappear.